गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायिने कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तिशक्तिकम्। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतश्चार्थेषु विज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्म हृदय आदि कवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter number 32, verse 28. Teachings of Lord Kapila to his mother Devhuti. And he is explaining the destination of living beings, human beings basically, after death depending on their karma. And as we read that he spoke of 4 possibilities. Those who are very materialistic, they have to suffer in hell and then take birth in lower species of life and then slowly be born as a human being. Those who follow religious principles but have material motives, then they go to heavenly planets which have various divisions. So such people usually go to Pitriloka and join with their departed forefathers, and they'll be born again in the same families or in relatives. And then there are others who perform religious duties without any material motive. They go beyond the heavenly planets. And they stay with Brahma for his whole lifespan, and then may be born again in the next cycle. And the 4th is the category of devotees who don't have to take birth again in the material world. So after that he started describing that how the material world it actually appears full of variety because of our ignorance, although it is Lord who is manifest in this form. And in the previous verse he said that Jnanam mekam parachinair indriyair brahma nirgunam abhati artha rupena bhantya shabdadi dharmina. That it is only one consciousness which is nirguna, which appears in various forms. Abhati artha rupena. Artha means the sense objects. So perceived in this manner because of the senses which are not devoted to the Lord. Parachina indriya means senses which are interested only in enjoying sense pleasures. Paranchi khani vedranit swayambhu paran pashyati nantarat. Senses are designed like that they only see externally and don't see the inner living being, which is the real existence. So this is the same word is used here, parachim. So they are not pratyak, they are not perceiving what is within. So he says that all these things appear as artha. Artha means something which we want. Arthate prarthate iti artha. So then these objects appear as the objects of our desires. And this is because of the Bhranti. Bhrantya Shabdadi Dharmina. So Bhranti is illusion of mistaking one object for another. Like mistaking the rope for snake. That is the Bhranti. So Bhranti here is that we are mistaking things which are temporary for permanent, which are not pleasurable for pleasurable things, and which are impure for pure things, and ultimately which is a manifestation of Supreme Consciousness for our objects of enjoyment, independent of Him. So this is what is happening, and this he said that Shabdadi Dharmina, these objects may have characteristics as sound, taste, touch, smell, etc. And person becomes entrenched or absorbed in these sense objects because of this illusion. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he gives a different perspective on this verse. He tries to explain it from the point of view of Advaitvad, but not exactly in the same manner. It's interesting how he explains this. It says, Nanu bhaktir asmat chikirshita shrutau avgata. It says that we actually desire bhakti, as if this question is posed by Devhuti. He is in the verses, because the verses are always connected to the topic. So this is a imaginary question which is assumed, and as if the verse is replying, as if Lord Kapila is giving a reply to that question, which may be posed by her, or she may like to know this. So as if she is saying that what we want to know is what is bhakti. We have heard it from you. That was our desirable object, because earlier also she said. And we have understood. Gyan yoga vapi swabhimatam vastu asmat jigyasya srutav avgatauche. We also had desire to know what is Gyan and what is Yoga. And we have also heard that and understood that. But something which we have not understood is this Advaita Jnana. Yad Advaitam Jnanam Tanna Samyag Avgatam. Because this is such a confusing thing. How is that there is only Brahman, formless, qualityless, can become everything. So she says that this I have not understood properly. Atah Sankshapena Bruhi. Therefore tell me that in brief. So in response to this question, he speaks this verse. Ataha Vivartavadinam Sammatam Jnanam. And therefore he is explaining the Jnana as accepted by the Vivartavadis, which is another name for Advaitvad. Jnanam ekam advaitam brahma yat tadeva parachinaihi parangmukhai maya shakti utthair indriyai shrotradivir hetuvir shabdadi dharmana अर्थरूपेण शब्दवानयं मृदंगो रूपवतीयं स्त्री रसवदिदं क्षीरं स्वादितम इत्यादि रूपेण जीवस्य भ्रांत्या भाति. So he says that there is only one Brahman, and that is Advaita without a second, and that Brahman is conscious. But this one Brahman, it appears in the form of sense objects having the characteristic of sound, taste, etc. because of the senses such as ear, nose, tongue, which are the product of Maya Shakti. So because these sense objects are made of Maya, therefore they make this Brahman appear as material. It's like light. You see light, but if you see it through the prism, then it breaks the light into 7 colors. Although if you see the light, it is colorless. So originally Brahman is like that, without any variety, but Maya is that which produces. And why it happens? Because this senses, they are parangmukha. They are outwardly oriented, or they are turned away from God, the Supreme Person. They are averse to devotion to God. Therefore the senses see so much variety here. Otherwise there is no variety. No variety does not mean that the objects don't exist, but no variety for enjoyment, because everything is just meant for service. But we see all these objects which we can enjoy in so many different ways. So this is because of the Maya Shakti of the Lord. So then what happens? Then we see that Sabdavan Ayam Mridango, that this Mridanga has nice sound. Rupavati Ayam Stri, or this woman is very beautiful. Rasvadidam Kshiram Swaditam, and the sweet rice made from cow's milk coming from Kurma's Gosala is very tasty. So all this we taste. Ityadi Rupena Jivasya Bhrantya Abhati. So he says that the Jiva experiences this only because of the Bhranti, only because of the illusion. Why is that? He says, Indriyanam sarvesham abhave gyan bheda bhavad yad ekam jnanam tad advaitam brahmaiva ityartha. He says, if the senses are not there, then you will not perceive any of these things like that. Then there is only one Gyan, one consciousness everywhere, and that is Brahma. Just like if the prism is not there, then you only see the light, not the colors. So now on this the question is raised. This is of course completely, this is how Advaitavadis speak. That means there is no variety here, nothing is real, everything is mithya, false. So then this question is raised. Nanu tarhi brahma pratita vastuno mithyatvam iva visvasyasya mithvatvam prasajjet. So he says, then that means, are you trying to say that this world is false? Because if the sense objects are false, they are not real, and only because of illusion we see them like that, then does it mean that the sense, this whole world which is made of this sense object is also false? Because if the parts are false, then the whole is also false. So is this what you are trying to tell me? So he says, no. Maivam Rajtamidam iti pratitau Shuktitvena pratiti abhavat Shuktau rajtatvasya mithyatvam. Says that if you see this, what you call oyster or mother of pearl, in Sanskrit that is called Shukti. So you see that on the beach, you may have sometimes seen it. And you see it from the far, and if the sunlight is there, then it appears like silver, piece of silver. You think this is a silver piece. So then you think Rajtamidam, oh, this is silver. So Rajtamidam pratitau Suktitvena pratiti abhavat. Then you don't see it as mother of the pearl when you are seeing the silver. So, but the fact is that Shuktau Rajtatvam Mithyatvam eva, that actually speaking it is only mother of the pearl and not the silver. The silver is false, it is not real. If you go and pick it up, then you don't see it as silver, or if you take it to Loi Bazaar, Hira Jewelers, they are not going to pay you for that. So therefore this is not really silver, because that, as they say that, what is that, the test of pudding is in testing. So in Sanskrit this is called Arthakriya Karitva. And the test of something being real is that you put it to use and then see. If it gives the expected result, then it is true, and if it is not giving the expected result, it is false. If you are thirsty and you think there is a water in the glass, you drink it, your thirst is quenched, then it is water. You drink it and still you are thirsty, then it must be something else. So he says that this is definitely not silver. So chakshusha rupam eva pashyati ityatra tu chakshu karnakam etat kartrikam rupa vishayakam jnanam iti jnana matrasya brahmano visheshatvena anubhavo bhavati eva kevalam kartri karna karmani visheshanani jnana padartha bhedkani maya bahiranga shaktya srijyante iti na tesham mithyatvam geyam. So he says that definitely the eyes, they see the form. Because when you are seeing the oyster, this mother of the pearl, then eyes seeing the form. So it is there. It's not that the eye is not seeing. You are not blind. Chakshusha rupam eva pashyati yatratu chakshu karnakam etat kartrikam rupa vishakam jnanam. So what the chakshu is doing, the eye is doing, that it is giving the knowledge about the form. Now jnana matrasya brahmano visheshatvena anubhavo bhavati eva. And Brahman is supposed to be jnana, consciousness or knowledge. So in that sense, it is right. In other words, that the existence is there, but seeing it as silver, that part is wrong. So what he is saying is that there are two things when we see an object. There is Visheshya and Visheshan. There is the quality of the object, and then the qualified object, and the object without the quality. So if you have, say, red flower, so redness is the quality and flower is the object, and red flower is the qualified object which has the redness in it. So redness is called quality, right, or adjective, and red flower is the qualified object, and flower is without qualities. If you remove the redness from it, there are three things. When you say red flower, there are three things: the quality, qualified object, and just the object without the quality. So he says that these qualities which we are seeing, that is the job of the senses. But the object without qualities, that is there. It's like you see the sun rays. Actually, you don't see the sun rays. We only see the objects in the sun rays. We don't see sunlight. We cannot see the light. What we see is the object in sunlight. If there are no objects in the sunlight, you will not see the light. But because of the senses, then, and if you break it, then you can see so many colors. But if you remove the color, then the light remains without qualities. So that is called Visheshya. Quality is called Visheshana. So Brahman is Visheshya, without qualities. And then the qualities are there because of the Maya Shakti. That's what he's trying to say. Kevalam kartri karna karmani visheshanani jnana padartha bhedkani maya bhiranga shaktya srijyante iti na tesham mithyatvam gayam. So all this, the perceiver, the senses which perceive and the object of perception, these distinctions are made by the power of Maya, Bahiranga Shakti, which bring the Visheshana or the qualities. And therefore they are not false. The problem is to think that they are Brahman or they are coming from Brahman. They are actually product of Maya. Maya is the one which has created them. So, because they are created by Maya and Maya is real, so these objects are also real. Therefore it says, iti na tesham mithyatvam gayam. Srishtya cha avidya svavritya jiva sahajikam jnanam brahmitva swasrishta kartradi visheshana avashishtya anantvidhe jnane patyate. So, because this Maya has created these objects, then the jiva, he does not understand this, and he considers this as his natural knowledge. Means he identifies with the body, which is also a product of Maya, and he thinks that this is my natural state, sahajik jnana. And then he utilizes the senses thinking these are my senses. And then he sees the sense objects and then he thinks these are sense objects for me. And then he gets into so much of this variety. Although originally the soul is just pure consciousness in its own swarupa, there is nothing else in it. But because of the contact with the body, then he becomes the agent of the actions, and then through the senses and the sense object, then all this variety comes into, and he gets completely entangled in these things, forgets about himself. So then he says that swasrishta kartradi visheshan vaishishtyad, that he creates his own doership, he becomes the doer, and then visheshan vaishishtyad, anant vidhe jnani, and there is so much variety. And this original consciousness, which has no variety in it, becomes full of variety, and he falls into it. Then the duality comes, this is good, this is bad, I like this, I don't like this. So all various types of duality comes into existence because of this. Then you become attracted to one thing, you want it, if you don't get it, you are unhappy. If you get it, then you want more of it, and then you become conditioned by that, and you lose track of what you really want. So this is what goes on. एषा एव जीवस्य अर्थरूपे नानाविधे ज्ञाने भ्रांत्या प्रवृत्ति यथा गोगर्धवादीनां शुद्धे गंगोदके वर्तमानेपि प्रणालिकादि विविध खात जलेषु एव पिपाशया प्रवृत्ति भ्रांत्या एव. So he says that in this way what happens, that the jiva, he becomes bewildered by the various sense objects and the knowledge of that. And then he becomes engaged in that only and forgets the real stuff. So he gives an example that just like a cow or a donkey who does not drink the pure water of Ganga, the Ganga is flowing, but they don't go to the Ganga and drink the water. But from the Ganga, some water has come out and it is in some ditch or somewhere and it is dirty, and they drink that only. So that is also because of the Bhranti, because they don't have the knowledge of the Ganga flowing. Natu abhrant dhiya manushyanam. So it says, but those people who are not bewildered, who have proper knowledge, they are not confused, they don't see it like this. And that's why in the Upanishad it is said, Sarvam khalu idam brahma, neha nanasti kinchana, that this is all Brahman, there is no variety here. Martyo mrityum apnoti yeya nana pashyati. So you attain death if you see all this variety. So those who are abhrant dhiya, who are not bewildered in their intelligence, then they see, they have the proper vision. Atra parang mukhair iti indriyanam visheshnad aparang mukhair abahir mukhair bhagavad unmukhair indriyastu madhur shabdavati yam bhagwan murli sham sundrayam bhagavad deha ityadi chidvastu nishto gyan bhedo na vyavchiddate tasya brahmattvadeva iti ahul bhagavata. Then he makes an extrapolation on this verse from Bhakti point of view. Says that just as people whose minds are turned away from God, they are seeing variety here created by Maya through their senses. He says in the same way, those people whose minds are not turned away from God but turned towards the God, they also have their senses. Then how do they perceive? So he says that then they perceive, oh, this is very beautiful sound coming from Krishna's flute. Oh, Krishna's body is very beautiful. So they see everything as Krishna, which is also Brahman. Sam Sundaram Bhagavad Deha, Lord's body is very beautiful. Chidvastu Nishto Gyan Bhedu. So they see the variety, they also see the variety of Gyan. And materialistic people are also seeing the variety in Gyan. But they are seeing variety in Gyan, the materialistic people, which is the outcome of Maya. And the devotees see the variety in Gyan, which is outcome of Yoga Maya. So this is the difference. This is, so they are seeing by Bhranti, and the others are seeing without Bhranti. So there is a lot of discussion about this Bhranti, how the delusion happens and what actually is. There is Satkhyati, Asatkyati, Sadasatkyati, Anirvachaniya Khyati, various philosophies. When you see a snake in the rope, what actually is this snake? So different scholars in India, there is a whole field called Khyativad, just to explain the snake in the rope. Big debates on this. So there are 5-6 which are common. So Nayayika say Anyatha Khyati, Ramanujacharya says Sat Khyati, everything is Sat only, and Buddhists they say Asat Khyati, and Shankaracharya says Anirvachaniya Khyati, and Mimamsakas they say I think Anni Khyati, Akhyati, and theirs is Akhyati, and in that also there are two views, Gurumat and Bhattamat. So there are many ways of explaining. It's quite interesting how just one example of a rope and snake has so much variety of explanation. And we have Achintya Khyati. Every school has got their own Khyati. So ours is also there. So in the last class I was actually explaining the idea from Advaita Vedanta point of view, if you remember. And they say that the snake is actually produced by Maya. And because Maya's products are mithya, so it is mithya, which means it is neither real nor unreal. So we don't accept that, because snake is not produced there. It's not, nothing is produced. What is done is that you have samskaras, the impressions of snake, either by seeing the real snake or you have seen a photo. And then when you see, and because the object is not very much clearly visible, because there is not sufficient light. So this will happen only when there is not sufficient light. If there is enough light, you see it rope. If there is no light, then it's dark, you don't see even the snake. So when there is half light, half darkness, then what happens that because of seeing it, and it has a similarity with the snake, there are certain conditions for Bhranti. For illusion to happen, there has to be certain conditions which have to be satisfied. So what happens that when our eyes come in contact with that object and the message is carried to the mind, then mind tries to compare this sensation with the previous samskara. And because of fear and things like that, it immediately pulls out the closest samskara of the snake and superimposes that onto the this perception. What you perceive, that thing is superimposed onto this in the mind. The mind is like a screen, so when one thing goes onto the other, you think it is a snake. Because now mind cannot distinguish between the perception and the impression. So you perceive actually vaguely this rope, but you conceive it clearly as snake because of the samskara and because of the fear and all that thing. And then you become scared. But they have explained that actually snake is created there by Maya for that period. And then it is gone, and that's also this drishti srishti comes. So snake is not created or anything, and that's how they try to prove that there is a type of existence which is neither real nor unreal. Because they say if it is real, it should be there later on also. If it is unreal, then you should not see it at all. But because you see it, but it is not there later on, therefore it is neither real nor unreal. But you cannot say that it is tuchya, that it has absolutely no existence. It is bhavarupa. It actually exists, so then it must be created. Then what can create it? Gyan, ignorance. And then they say that like that only this whole world is created by Agyan. So this world is a creation of Agyan, of Jiva. Just as you create the snake by your Agyan. So this is their Anirvachaniya Khyati. How it happens, this is Anirvachaniya, cannot be described. So this is the name of their Khyati then, Anirvachaniya. So now he continues. So he explained that how this happens by Bhranti or by Maya. Then he explains how the Maya creates. Yatha mahanaham rupas trivrit panchvidha swarat ekadash vidhastasyeva purandam jagadyatah etadvai shraddhya bhaktya yoga abhyasena nityasha samahitatma nishango viraktya paripashyati. So he says that just as there is only one reality, and that one reality manifests Mahat Tattva, which has got three varieties, of ahankar, sattvic ahankar, rajasic ahankar, tamasic ahankar. And then from tamasic ahankar come the 5 sense subtle elements, tanmatras, and from that come the 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, sky. And from the rajasic ahankara comes buddhi, the intellect, and the senses. And from sattvic ahankara comes the mind. So all this manifestation comes. And then the jiva is sitting in between them, not knowing one's swarupa. So he says, Ekadas vidhastasya vapur andam jagadyata. So he says that the body of the living being and the universe, they are both are made of these elements which are described. So whatever is in the universe is also in our body. Our body is a replica of the universe. It is a mini universe. If you want to study the universe, you can study the human body. And then you will know. Therefore he says that Ekadas vidhastasya vapur andam jagadyata. So how we know this? He says that only when the bhranti is removed, and that is by bhakti. Etad vai shraddhya bhaktya yoga abhyasena nityasya. If you start with shraddha, perform bhakti, and if you are a yogi, you do yoga abhyas, then regularly samahitatma nisango viraktya paripashyati. Then when the mind becomes concentrated, samahit atma, then nisanga, the person becomes detached, means realizes oneself free from the bodily identification, and viraktya has no interest then obviously in sense pleasures, because once you realize your own swarupa, then where is the pleasure in the sense objects? All this is because of illusion that we think we can enjoy. Then paripashyati, then one sees all around the reality. So that's what Krishna says, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudarlava. That is only Vasudeva, in everything. Sarvbhutasya pasyad bhagavad bhavam atmana. The definition of Uttam devotee is given by Navyogendraj in 11th Canto, and they also say that everywhere they see their own bhav. Because they have become free from the conditioning of mind. So when this conditioning is removed, then you see things differently. It's like if we wear some dark glasses, then the things look different. It's not that things are different. It is also not that things are false. The objects are existing. But if suppose you put green glasses on your eyes, then everything will look greenish to you. But is it greenish? It is not. And it is also not, as Advaitavadis say, that these objects don't exist. They exist, but they are not green. The greenness is in the glass, which is being superimposed onto the objects, which are not green. So then when you remove the glass, then you can see things as they are. So now Maya has conditioned the jiva, and because of this conditioning, you call it avidya, agyan, ignorance, whatever, then he sees various objects which he can enjoy in this material world. Or he sees certain objects which he cannot enjoy and tries to avoid them. Therefore there is raga and dvesh. There is attachment and hatred. And love and hate. It's material love and material hatred, envy, all this kama and krodha. Kama means love and krodha means opposite of that. So this problem of kama esha, krodha esha, rajaguna samudbhava, mahasano mahapapma, vidyayenam yagairanam. This is the greatest enemy. Then the vision of such a person is different. It's like when we get angry, our vision changes, isn't it? When you are in the angry mood, then everything looks different. Even your wife, husband, children whom you may have affection for, and when you are angry, they don't look affectionate to you anymore. You can smash them, you can hit them. People do that in angry mood. So anger changes your vision. Then when anger is gone, you are normal, then you are in another vision. So the objects are not changed and objects are not false, but because of our vision, things appear differently. So when we get off from this and become situated in our self, as he says, nisanga, viraktya, then we see things as they are. It's like we have removed the dark glasses or green glasses. So that's what is being described here. Artharupena bhati iti yuktam ato artha madhyapatitam eva sarvam mayikam vastu iti darshati. So he said that these objects, they appear to him as artha or something desirable. So he says that all these objects which we are seeing around, they are mayik, and maya is not false, but means something which is covering the reality. As we read yesterday, that there are two potencies of maya. One is Avaran Shakti, another is Vikshep Shakti. That it covers our true knowledge and it gives wrong knowledge. It makes us believe things which they are not. It's not just covering. First it covers and then it puts us into the illusion, mistaking snake for rope or rope for snake. So therefore he says that now he explains how the Maya is working. So he says Mahan Chittam, that we have Mat Tattva, which is another word for Chitta. Chitta is made from Mat Tattva. And then from that comes the Ahankara. So therefore Chitta is the first one, the closest to the soul, and it gets the consciousness from the soul. And from that the consciousness spreads to other things. So the first thing is consciousness, and then consciousness is not enough, then you have to have your ego, identity. So next thing is Ahankara. If you are just conscious, no identity, no ego, then what will you do? You just go around like zombie. Zombie means like some people who are like insane, they are conscious but they are not able to figure out what is their identity. Therefore they cannot do anything. They're like machines. So therefore first thing which comes out of consciousness is Ahankara, I. And Ahankara has an identity. Once you have the I, then you want to do something. If you want to do something, you need senses. So then Karmendriya, Gyanendriya, cognitive senses, working senses, they come out. And senses, what will they do if there is nothing where to work? Then the objects. So that's how it flows like this. So it says Aham Rupa, Ahankara, Trivrita, Trigunatmaka. It's of three types because we have three divisions. We have the senses, we have the sense objects, and then there is a mind relates with these two. So these three, all three come from the I. And you can play with this. And then it becomes your playground. And the consciousness.
This is Tripura.
त्रिपुटी पैदा कर दिया, अब खेलो. Then त्रिगुणात्मक सच पंचविध शब्दादि रूपेण आकाशादि रूपेण च पुनरेकादशविध इंद्रिय रूपेण स्वराट समष्टि व्यष्टि विराट शुद्ध जीवस्य पुरंदरचेति. So then you have all these 5 sense objects, 11 senses including the mind, and then this makes both vyashti and the samashti, the individual body and the aggregate, the universal body. So we are part of the universe. So there is something called fractals. Fractal? You've seen this cauliflower or what is that? Green cauliflower? Broccoli. You've seen broccoli? If you take a small piece of broccoli and see how it is made, then you take a big piece, it is also made in the same way. And if you take a bigger, the whole thing, the whole structure is like that. So you have the big structure, and inside that you have the small structure but the same type. And if you take the small of that, inside also the same type. These are called fractals. So this universe is like this. You take a small part, everything is there in that. All the big, what is there in the big is also in the small. And then you, with the small, you combine them and you make a bigger one. And that will also have all that in it. So if you take the broccoli or cauliflower, you notice next time, it's like that. Smallest part has the same structure as the whole thing. And that small things combine together the bigger part, and then bigger and bigger and bigger, but at every level the same structure. So our body is also made like that. And the parts in the body, and you go to the smallest level, you will see the same thing which is at the universal level. So therefore samashti and vyashti both contain the same, the individual and the aggregate. So shuddha jivasya purandam chaiti yato mahadadibhyo jagat maikamidam. So the Vapu or Anda is for the Brahmanda, Vapu is for the individual body. So he says that this whole Jagat, the universe, starting from Mahat Tattva, is all Maya, made from Maya, Vishwam Bhavati, Mahadadinam Esham Buddhi Vishyatvad Artharubhati. And these Mahat etc., they are called Artha because they are the subject of Buddhi. We can understand, we can know them through our mind. Therefore they are called Artha, Vishaya. Artha means Vishaya, the objects. Asya jnanasya adhikarinam aha etas jnana rupam brahman etat chidvastu. So who can understand this? What is being explained, this is not understood by everybody. Who is the adhikari? Who is the person who is qualified to understand this? Or how can we become qualified to understand? Because everybody cannot understand everything. If you want to do anything, you need some qualification for that. Every action requires some qualification. So what is the qualification to understand this? That is being described in this next verse. Where it says that etadvai shraddhya bhaktiya yoga abhyasena nityasya. That first you have to have shraddha. Shraddha means that the Shastra is explaining and we believe that this is true. Because if you don't believe in it, you are not going to even think that I have to make an effort to understand it. So Shraddha means Shastra Arthesu Vishwas. To have belief in the meaning of Shastra. What is being described? That is called Shraddha. And then says Bhaktya. The next thing which is very important is Bhakti. Because without Bhakti nothing works. Bhakti is the life of yoga, jnana, karma, everything. So Bhaktya and yoga abhyas, because the topic had been yoga before. So you start with that. Because devotees are really not interested in also knowing all this. Yogis, they have to do chitta vritti nirodha. They have to stop all the modifications of their mind. So they have to understand it. But even they have to take help from Bhakti. Therefore it says Bhaktya Yoga Abhyasena. So Nityasa, and how long you have to do it? You have to do it every day. Regularly. Not that you do it for 1 day, 2 days, 1 month, 2 months, and then you think, well, I give up now. No, Nityasa. Just as you eat every day, like that, this has to be practiced. So then what will happen? Samahitatma. Then your mind will become concentrated. Ekagra. Now our mind is running here and there, and therefore we cannot see the reality. The reason we do not see this, what is being described here, is because our mind is not focused. It is out of focus. Like if you have a camera and the lens is out of focus, then you don't see things clearly. Right? So to see things properly, then you have to focus it. When you focus, then you get a clear picture. You know what the object is. So at present, our mind is out of focus. It cannot, when it is focused, it has to remain fixed. But suppose you are always moving your lens. Then what will happen? You never see anything clearly. And not only that you are moving your lens, you are also moving the camera. It's not also only on one object. So we are unfocusing in two ways, that we don't fix our mind on one object, and then even when it is on one object, we don't focus completely on that. So then we don't see the objects what they are. Just like if when the aeroplane is taking off, it goes in a high speed or it is landing into high speed, you don't see things clearly outside because you are so fast. To see, you have to focus, you have to stop. So like that our mind is running. It is wavering. Therefore Krishna uses the word chanchal. Chanchalam. So chanchal means, not chal means to move, and chanchal is kutil gati, right? This chanchal is not only used in the sense of moving, but moving improperly. So yang pratyaya applied here on chal in a specific meaning, that not only that it moves, but not moving orderly, in a disordered fashion. That is the meaning of chanchal. The word chanchal, which is translated as flickering, it's not flickering in an orderly manner. You can also flicker in an orderly manner. No, it's not like that. You don't know how long it is on, how long off, on, off, what order, function. That's what mind is. So this practice of yoga, what is called here as samahita, ekagrikrita, and this of course we try to do in every path, even in bhakti. Yena kena prakarana mana Krishna niveshayat. Somehow try to focus the mind on Krishna. Because it is we are seeing the world through the mind. If you fix your eye in front of the camera, and you are seeing the world through that camera only, right? There is no other way you can see. So whatever is the problem with the camera, that will be the problem of your perception. So we are seeing everything ultimately through the mind. And mind is chanchal. Chanchalam hi manai Krishna pramathi balvadranam. And it is pramathi, it is very agitated, which I said that it's not even flickering in an orderly manner. And it is very powerful, balvat. Means you try to fix it somewhere, it goes somewhere. You try to chant your mantra, and within no time it has gone without you knowing it. And very obstinate. It wants something, it will go there again and again, again and again. So therefore we don't perceive things. That's why he was saying that because of Bhranti, it's a very amazing thing what is happening to human beings. That we are sitting inside these bodies and seeing things. And then we have fights, we have problems, and this guy said like this and he did like this. And so we have unfocused perceptions, and in those unfocused perceptions we are making our decisions, and our whole life is rotating behind those things. And we are getting totally entangled, and we are very serious about it. I'm not going to leave this guy. Why the hell did he say this to me? And then you go and dream and sleep and plot and plan about it. All about the unfocused thing. You don't even know what is the reality. You are not even seeing things clearly. So that's why there is this song of Earth, in 12th Canto, where she laughs, says, so many kings came and they said, I am the king, this belongs to me. And then they fight with another one. Says, I have seen so many come and go, I'm still there. So, but for that short period, everybody thinks like that. So this is when the mind becomes ekagrita, samahita, then nisanga, then you start seeing things clearly. Then you know what is what. Then your attachments go away. Because you realize, my God, I was unnecessarily wasting my life for this. It's not the way what I thought. So that's why the vairagya comes then. This is the real vairagya. It's not you have to practice it. So nisanga viraktya. Then you become asakti rahita in all these sense objects. And then you see that purusha etat sarvam brahmatmakam paripashyati. Then you can see sarvam khalu idam brahma. Isa vasam idam sarvam yat kinchit jagatyam jagat. Tena taktena bhanjita magradkasya svidhanam. These are statements of people who are actually seeing the reality. They are not imaginary things as many modern scholars have said so much nonsense about it. This is realized knowledge. These people were seeing. They wrote whatever they could express in words what they are experiencing. It is very difficult to express it because you use the language, and the languages which we are using for our day-to-day life. In that language they have tried to give the message, the knowledge. So it's not somebody's imagination. It's not that they were intoxicated. Yes, they were intoxicated by the beauty and by the bliss of this realization. Then they have spoken, Isa Vasamidam Sarvam. What a nice statement, Isa Vasamidam Sarvam. Yat kinchi jagatyam jagat. So then you see how this world is Brahmatmakam. Why in the Upanishad it is said that yes, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Know this. Yasmin Vigyate Sarvam Vigyatam Bhavati. By knowing this, everything becomes known. So Svetketu went to Banaras, he studied there for many years. He was a very good student, learned, came back, he was very proud. So his father saw him, and those who are realized people, they can figure out just by the looks. So when he saw him coming from Banaras, after studying all the Shastra, and he saw the way he was walking, so he realized that this guy has not studied anything. He didn't get the tattva. So he didn't ask him anything. He said, "My dear son, have you studied that by studying which everything becomes known?" So this was a blow to his pride. So he said, "What? Studied that by studying which everything? I never heard that." So he says, "You go back then." So he said, "All your education is useless." What have you learned? Nothing. So this is what is being described here in Bhagavatam, that this is Gyan Matram Param Brahma, Paramatma Ishvara Praman. Earlier he also said that Bhagavan Eke Iyate. Earlier he spoke from the devotee point of view in verse number 26, that it is only Bhagavan who is manifest all this. And here he spoke how the people who are Bhranta, they realize things, and how we can become free from this. So I'll stop here. In the upcoming verses he is going to now wrap up his teachings to Devhuti. Is there any question?
There was a used statement that Rajaguna generates buddhi, right?
Mm.
And Sattva-guna generates man.
Right.
So logically, then it appears that mind is superior to intelligence because it comes from Sattva-guna. No?
Yeah, it comes from Sattva-guna, but it does not mean that it is superior, because we have to see the function, why it is from Sattva and why Buddhi is from Rajas. Because Rajas is that which makes divisions, and Manas is that which sees things one way. So what happens that when we perceive things, first the perception comes to the mind, and mind only has nirvikalpak jnana, means knowledge without any distinction of the quality and the qualified object, as I said, that this is a blue flower or this is a red cloth, nothing. It just gets a sensation related to taste or whatever, so it only knows that there is some taste, there is some fragrance, but what it is,
the intelligence is required.
that for that intelligence is required. So then what it does is that it gives that sensation to intelligence, and intelligence is the one which, with the help of chitta, where everything is stored, then it searches the corresponding thing, and then intelligence gives the proper knowledge, which is called savikalpa jnana, means the qualified knowledge or determinate knowledge. So first we get indeterminate knowledge, and then we get determinate knowledge. So because mind gives indeterminate knowledge, which means without any variety, therefore it is called Sattva, because in Sattva there is no variety. If you see Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, when Krishna is talking about knowledge in Sattva, Rajas and Tamo, then he says that when one sees things same, Ek Bhav, and that is Sattva. When he sees Nana Bhav, Prithak Bhav, variety, that is Rajas. And tamas is when you confuse one for another. So it is for that reason. And then buddhi also makes decisions, like this is proper, not proper. Mind just goes, if it likes something, it just goes for that, without seeing the consequence, good or bad. So because buddhi does that, so in that sense it is called the function of rajas.
So then buddhi is superior.
Yeah, it is superior because it does a function which is superior, although it is coming from rajas. That function needs rajas to do that. The rajas is required for that. So another thing is that it is not always that sattva, rajas, tamas, they are always this is better than that. Sometimes the function of one is superior, like tamas, although it is considered as lowest, but it has a function which is also necessary, without which sattva, rajas will not work. Like we need to sleep, and for sleep we need tamas.
And sleep deprivation disturbs or negates buddhi.
Right.
In other words, if you don't get sleep, your intelligence doesn't
Then your
function
intelligence will
properly.
not. In fact, sleep is one of the function of intelligence. Intelligence does 5 functions. One of them is swap, sleeping.
That's clear.
Yes, Manjari. You don't? I thought you
About this observing how the things are aggregate in the same way in the small and in the big. So then, by observing the small, let's see how its body now, in the case of our body, our mind, and the functions of, we can understand how in the big scale everything is functioning.
Yeah.
Because, for example, you said that we don't perceive things because the mind is moving too fast. But then there are these people who are trying to empty the mind. No? They say, okay, they try to erase the impressions of it, so that nothing is there in the mind anymore.
Yeah, there's a process for that. It's not. You have to follow a very strict process to achieve that.
Is it really possible?
Yeah, it is possible.
Because you are going to correct any time you are going to correct.
That's why they have to stop collecting. I'm saying there's a very strict process to do that. It's not very easy. Abhyas vairagyam tan nirodha. You have to practice, and you also have to have vairagya, means you have to stop collecting more impressions. That's why you have to live in a solitary place, not meeting people, be very reclusive, and not having too many things around you, because all these things create problem for the sanskaras. So if one wants to practice this type of meditation, then one has to stop things which are going against it. So that's why even Krishna says aratir jana sansadi, not having attachment to public places where there are too many people, or going to meetings, this, that. Just a cause of disturbance for the mind.
Sleep, and then in the end, what remains is that you have also to maintain the soul within the body.
Yeah, so you limit yourself as much as, and then finally you have to give up that also. It's very difficult, it's not easy.
Dirghakala.
Hmm?
Dirghakala. 1936. Dirghakala Satkara Sevita.
Yes.
Abhyas.
Das Vairagya Bhyam Tanniva. There is a very scientific process actually given in Yoga Sutra. But one has to follow it very strictly, especially in the present lifestyle.
But then there is no, let's say one is successful in that, then he can perceive things as they are.
Anyway, this is one way. Why you are asking? Bhakti is different.
I was asking because
Yeah, he can perceive things as they are. And once you can stop, then you can know things. And then you attain what is called Tatra Ritambhara Pragya. You develop a special type of intelligence. Once you come to Savikalpak Samadhi, there are two types of Samadhi, Savikalpak Samadhi and Nirvikalpak Samadhi, or Sabij Samadhi or Nirbij Samadhi. So when you attain that Savikalpak Samadhi, then Ritambhara Pragya is generated in the person. You get a very special type of intellect. It is called Ritambhara. Ritam means reality. From this word Ritam comes the English word rhythm. Then you catch the rhythm of the universe. This universe has a rhythm. Even scientists have figured out that the universe has its own music. Something is completely quiet, everything, and they have perceived certain waves, which is the universal music or universal rhythm. So everything in this universe is working on the basis of rhythm. And it is all a matter of what kind of rhythm something is in. Then matter appears at different levels because of the different rhythm. So Ritambhara by Ritambhara Pragya, they can perceive the basic of it. Then they don't need these senses to perceive. Then they can perceive anything, past, present, future, because of this idea of Satkaryavad, that everything always exists, everything is real, and always existing either in the manifest state or unmanifest state. So they can actually go to that level of unmanifest state also when things are not manifest. Now when we are seeing things with our senses, we don't see things really speaking. If we analyze how we see things, we are not seeing things. We are only seeing the impressions of these things presented to the mind by the senses. We don't see the object directly. Although we call it direct perception, but it is not really direct perception. We call it direct perception only for the fact that the object is there and the sense has to contact it. In the other types of knowledge, the object is not there. Whether it is inference or Shabda Praman, you don't come in contact with the object. That's why it is called Paroksha Jnana. And this is Aparoksha, direct, because the object is there and the sense has to contact that. And then you see, but we actually don't see the objects really speaking directly. Directly one will see only when one comes to the Ritambhara Pragya. Then nothing is coming in between. And then the object reveals itself to you what it is. So the Avaran Bhang.
There will be no senses. Madhyam.
So that is when one can see things as they are. So this is also one of the meaning of the Upanishadic mantra Satyasya Abhitam Mukham in the Ishopanishad, that the face of the reality is covered by the light. Right? This is what the mantra is saying. That the face Satyasya Apihitam Mukham, the face of Satya, the reality, is covered by the light. So the scientific, I'm giving a scientific explanation of this mantra. The scientific explanation is that when you see an object, actually you don't see the object. What you see is the light reflected from it. If there is no light, you don't see the object. Light is falling on this camera from that tube light, and then that light is coming to my eyes. So what I am actually seeing is the light reflected, not the camera. And from that light, my mind conceives this. So the Satya, the object is there. I'm not saying that the object is not there, but I don't see it. What I see is the light. So all around there is light. And that is the only way I see it. So Satyasya Apihitam Mukham. So with Ritambara Pragya, then you will actually see what is the object. As we are saying that it is only Jnana. Jnanam Ekam Param. Now all the time whatever we see, we neither see the light, really speaking light, we see the light, we don't see the object, we only see the light reflected from the object. And that also, not that we see the light, but the light which is carrying. Because when light falls on this object, some light gets absorbed and some get reflected. This is not black in color. What we are seeing, this camera is black, its color is not black. Black is the light which it reflects. And the other frequencies it absorbs. So then I see that and I say this is black in color. But what actually is the color of this object, I don't know. And there is no way that I can figure it out. Because the very instrument by which I am going to figure it out is the eye. Eye is the only thing which can see the color. But eye is going to see the color of this object, what comes from it. And that is because the object is not self-effulgent, it is not self-luminous, then I need another light. And then first of all, what are the frequencies of that light which is going to fall on it, and then what will be reflected from it, and from that I say, well, this is the color of this. If I put another light, I may see another color, which happens. You have a cloth, in this light it looks one way, you make the light green, it looks green. So what is the color of the cloth? Is it green? Or is it some other color? Suppose all the time you see everything in green light, then the color of everything will change. And suppose you have never seen these objects in the white light, you will think that all this is the actual color. But now because we are seeing things in the white light, we say, well, this is green and this is wood color and this is brown color and this is this color. But is this the real color? So this is how our senses are working. This is the Bhranti, which he is calling as Bhrantya.
But Shastra refers to this false perception, not false, to this projection. If Shastra describes spiritual objects, it always refers to these projections of mind in order to give just to refer to it. So I'm saying that this is projection from objects, not objects to the mind, but Shastra, in order to describe spiritual reality, refers to these projections.
I'm not getting what you are saying.
Nobody understands what I'm saying? This projection.
What you're saying is that Shastra refers to the objects as we see them, so that we can relate with the
we don't
statements
see
of
them.
the
That's what I'm
Shastra.
saying, that we have projection of objects.
You say that the mind projects, the objects are only projections of the mind, if I'm right.
You say that this is just projection of light which brings particular color,
The object is there.
form to the mind. But and so we don't see this actually directly. But still Shastra refers to this indirect vision in order to describe spiritual reality. So if it's not direct but still is valid because
Yeah, I mean this is a word which is used for it. Because there are other type of knowing things which are not direct. That's why we call it direct.
from the scripture.
Yeah, scripture only.
Yes, but
It's called
that's why I'm
protection.
saying this still, even if this is from the scripture.
Because
it
Shastra
refers-
is meant for us,
Yes.
and for us this is the direct perception.
Yes.
So that's why we call it direct perception.
Mhm.
If they start saying that this is not direct perception, then you will be confused. Then what is direct perception?
But still, it reflects reality.
And that's what he was saying, that it is by Bhranti that we are seeing things like that. And this direct perception is not the ultimate pramana. Why we say that Shastra is Shabda is pramana, not direct perception? Because it has its limitation.
It has limitations, yeah. But still gives some glimpse of reality in a way.
Yeah. Because if direct perception is not there, then there is nothing you can do. You cannot even get help from Shastra. You have to hear it, right?
Mhm.
And hearing is also direct perception. You have to use what you have.
Question about this Savikalpak Samadhi, was it when you perceived the basic rhythm of the...
No, Savikalpak Samadhi means when your mind becomes fixed on the object of meditation.
So
And
then in Nirvikalpak Samadhi you perceive the rhythm.
Nirvikalpak means now the mind becomes blank.
So there is no perception of the
No
basic
perception.
rhythm of the universe.
No perception of anything except yourself.
Mhm.
You just perceive your own existence.
So there is a difference between rhythm and sound.
Everything is rhythm. Sound is also a wave.
So if you say that he perceives the basic sound of the universe, that's same. So what happens to him when he perceives this? It's just
He knows
it's just
what.
caught in it, or
That's why they say that there is no variety here.
Mhm. So it just is with this sound and
Yeah, you know that this is the basic reality.
but it doesn't do anything with it. It's a fulfillment in itself.
Just happy with it.
Mhm.
But the perception is not from the Gyanendriyas, right?
Yeah, it's not from the jnana. Without senses.
So it's a perception in the buddhi, in the
Yeah.
ahankara.
Special.
Without buddhi or mind, there is no perception. There has to be vritti. All jnana or knowledge is by vritti, means state of mind.
And that's an everlasting, eternal samadhi, or it can be broken and
Yeah,
disrupted?
It can broken, it can come down.
I just want to ask about this variety in the object, in the prakriti, in the material. So then there are all basically waves. They're moving faster or slower, and they somehow they aggregate in different ways.
Yeah, just like you have this fan, so now you see these three fins. But if you start moving this fan, then now you can say that these things are, one is here, one is there, another is there. But if it is moving, can you say where is it?
You can say one, two.
And if it is moving at a very high speed, then it will be everywhere. But actually it is not everywhere.
It's in one place.
After all, the fin at a particular point in time is only at one place. But you won't be able to figure this out. So the whole thing will look like a solid disc to you. See the Alat Chakra Nyaya. So now the reality has changed because of the movement. The same thing is now appearing differently and it will also function differently. So this is how things manifest at a grosser and grosser and grosser level, from the subtle to gross.
So then attaching.
So we are seeing these objects as stable objects. And this is stable here, but actually, if you, I'm sure everybody knows from scientific point of view, there is nothing stable here. So all the time all these molecules are jumping up and down, there is no boundary. And there is so much space in between. It's more space than the real thing. Yet it looks solid and I cannot put my finger into it. Why? Because these things are actually vibrating.
The constitution of the finger cannot have the same, has a different structure or different.
If you want to get into it, you also have to go to that level. So at our level it looks solid object. But at the subtle level it is not solid, everything is vibrating here completely. So if this is the case with this solid thing, then what to speak of gas? Gas, we have studied that all the time there are movements. You know that water also. You have a glass of water and you put even 1 spoon of sugar in it, after some time it gets mixed up. So how does it mix? Because the molecules are going up and down all the time. And you put something colorful and then it will spread. So you are not making it move. So why is it moving? Because there is a movement. Although to you it looks like that everything is stable in this glass of water. But actually nothing is stable there. That's why it is called samsara. And everything is moving here. Or jagat. Gacchati iti jagat. That which moves. And it's not only that earth is moving and sun is moving and the galaxies are also moving and the atom is also moving and protons, everything is moving. We are sitting here, we think we are sitting, but actually we are moving at a very high speed.
Starting to get
Isn't it? But we think we are sitting, this is an illusion. The whole galaxy is moving.
Yes. And what keeps the things aggregating one and the other and all different forces? What is this force that aggregates things in different forms?
I don't understand.
Let's say this room is full of objects, and every object has its own movement. Let's say the lamp or my body.
Yeah, they have their center of movement.
They have a
They're
center
moving
of
around something. They are not moving randomly, running here and running there. Otherwise, tomorrow morning you will not find the sofa.
No, that's why I'm asking, what is the force that aggregates them? Something has to keep them.
That is the Sankarshan force.
Sananta.
Sankarshan.
That is the power of Balaram. Okay, Hari Bol.